And here we are back in the Northern Undead Asylum. Now the hollows that wept inside when we started the game have become aggressive, attempting to keep us out of this place. An asylum is many things. The most popular interpretation is it is a place for the insane, and it is. The insane were brought to this place to recover. But asylum also means sanctuary, a place of peace, a place to escape the outside world. Us returning here is upsetting to these hollows because this is something they feared would happen. Like the hollow soldier who dropped the gate in the undead parish, these creatures are protecting something important. And now to start a new segment for the tour, the I don't know what this is segment. This very purposeful door design, I don't know what this is. It's something that has bugged me for years. I'm still no closer to figuring it out. It's like a variation of the 4-circle pattern but with pillars. It has a weird face in the middle of it. You can really only see that detail when you're in the game. And the circle looks like an elevator in Lost Isleth. What is it? I don't know. Let me know if you have any thoughts about what this door design could mean. And there are a few of these around. We will be seeing another next episode. And as we go on the tour, there will be more ambiguity. It is an aspect of the symbolic storytelling that sometimes things become blurred. Like the first war after the defeat of the dragons that we talked about last episode. I do believe that there's an ongoing war orchestrated by the firstborn of Gwyn and the Daughters of Chaos. The details of the war, though, are somewhat blurry to me. And now the mad dogs of the asylum. These two unique statues sit in front of the room of the asylum demon and the exit to the outside world. What do these statues mean? We have seen the dogs elsewhere in the game now, serving the Capra demon in the basement. In the depths with the butchers, one dog paired directly with one of the butchers. Small fire-breathing dogs that sat in front of the remains of a firekeeper in Blighttown. Notice the face of the dog transfixed on something high above like the sun, as though it wonders what it is like to be so grossly incandescent. The dogs are the warriors of Lordran who wish to be better, who wish to serve and at the same time wish to be noble and honourable. Duty is an unforgiving task, just ask the Daughters of Chaos. And to be noble and honourable at the same time, perhaps that is an irreconcilable dilemma, a sickening madness, a terrible curse to bear. The chosen undead of Lordran needed a place to recover when such nagging thoughts became too heavy of a load to carry. Not only have the residents of the Undead Asylum taken up arms against us, a Black Knight has appeared, attempting to stop us from exploring the area. The Black Knight is a warrior who was made to serve. It was the first of Menace's constructs in the Age of Ancients, a creature with a soul, a life force, but no innate humanity. The knights served Gwyn loyally, and this knight, like the others that went with Gwyn to light the first flame, faced the consequences of that service. The knights were burned in the explosion that occurred when Gwyn used the rite of kindling to sacrifice himself to the first flame. This caused them to transcend, allowing them to witness what happened in the eras after Gwyn's sacrifice. And yet, after being burnt alive, after the numerous trials they faced in Lordran against those that came after, one is still here serving its master Gwyn and protecting that legacy. The constructs of the world are not mindless, but their lack of humanity stops them from seeing past their duty to seek different and possibly better ways. That is an important difference between soul and humanity. Humanity allows adaptation, while the soul is simply a driving force forward. And in the difference we see the conflict of the warriors of Lordran. They have humanity, yet they wish to be like this Black Knight here. A denial of their own nature, a giving up of their humanity for a greater purpose. Does this self-denial help the warrior ascend and become better? Is the world of Lordran a better place because of this sacrifice? Or is it just a torturous madness with no real answer? The egg-bearers of the Chaos Flame would laugh at these ridiculous questions. The answers are all very clear to them. Another nameless knight falls after going mad in the asylum. Who was this knight, and what was his purpose? The crest shield. Shield of a nameless knight, likely a high-ranked knight of Astora. One of the enchanted blue shields, the crest shield greatly reduces magic damage. Now we have the two enchanted shields of Astora. Let's have a quick look at this one. Notice in the very center of the leaves we have a woman in a dress. This image has a dual meaning. It is Velka in her beautiful form, as the royalty of Astora. This strange shape is similar to the small angel figure we saw in Pinwheel's room in the catacombs, the room with the books and candles. I also believe it is a capturing of Menace's fantasies about Priscilla, the thing he longed for while he was in Astora. The leaves and vines representing a garden, the angel representing the child the two of them would have together when they were no longer forced to be apart. This is an image of a kingdom of peace that did not exist in the vile era of Astora and Gwyn's tyranny. But Menace held this image in his mind's eye, the kingdom of Ulasil, as he suffered through his forced marriage with Velka, goddess of sin. And in that kingdom of peace at the end of the world, there would be a crest of a regal dragon family, and there, with Priscilla by his side, Menace would be known as the Dragon King. And now the metal ball that attempted to surprise us at the very beginning of the game. A silver ball that came down from on high and crashed through this wall. Beyond the wall, we have a half-submerged room. The silver ball is the full moon, crashing down upon the earth. One of the first symbols we saw in the game was the divine justice of Priscilla. And that divine justice came crashing down upon the home of the Knight of Astora, freeing him from the captured existence of the Astora pilgrimage. And that freedom sent him mad, as everything he lived for, all the justifications for the sins he had committed on his quest to prove himself and finally ring that bell of awakening, were taken from him. And with the lies of his existence now apparent to all, he gave up and handed the torch to another, knowing full well his mind could not handle the insanity anymore. He didn't go mad because he hated New Londo or whatever it was that came next. He went mad because he had come to believe none of it mattered. Life was meaningless and death was his only escape. But that was another mercy that was taken from him. The undead Knight of Astora was now hollow. Now that was a bunch of symbols coming together, but what was that knight really doing in that cell? He was holding to his faith in his city, his family, and his traditions. Now notice the difference here from our last visit. There are now two hollows instead of one. The extra hollow has a spear. In the Undead Burg, we saw the spear carriers on top of the symbol of New Londo, representing the sealers of that place. They both guard this locked door, but now we know that whatever is locked behind here is connected to the sealers of New Londo. The West Asylum Key. We have discussed the four lands of Lordran, with the east and the west being the most represented in the game. On the east side of the asylum, we found the symbols of Astora. Here on the west, we are looking at the symbols of the western lands, the area that is now the Darkroot Basin. And in that land we find the rusted iron ring. This iron ring was used to shackle the guilty. It is terribly rusted and faintly stained with blood. Those who find this strange ring to their liking will be pleased to find it easier to gain footing on poor ground, such as swamps. This ring will remove the slow movement of the chosen undead that we saw when we were trying to cross the swamp in Blighttown. We will move as though we were walking on solid ground, just like this. This ring is the first symbol of a character I have not talked about much, and that is Hawkeye Goth. He led a battalion known as the Great Archers in the war against the dragons, and I personally classify him as a general of Gwyn, though there is no such title in the game. The other generals being Manus, Havel the Rock, and Seek the Scaleless, alongside the Outlier, the Firstborn of Gwyn. He is also one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn, the others being constructs, part of the Lion race, though Hawkeye Goth is a giant, one of the goats. And because he is a giant, he does not have humanity innately within him like the smaller humanoids. What we are seeing here is Hawkeye Goth being bound in the Western Land. When we find him in the game, he is imprisoned in a tower in Aldia, and he is imprisoned there because the West was his land after the war with the dragons. The ring is made of iron because Hawkeye's imprisonment happened when Gwyn created New Londo, and in the metallurgy cycle of Manus, this is the Age of Iron. Gwyn took the eastern and western lands and combined them and gave them to Havel the Rock in that era. This is what we are seeing with the east-west shield, which we found in the cleric set, a symbol of the Way of White in the catacombs. So let me just quickly demonstrate the use of this ring. We know that it will help us in swamps, but here notice it will also help us within water. This ring is just the tool that we need to vanquish that Hydra that was terrorizing us in the Darkroot Basin. But why is this effect on a ring meant to shackle the guilty? The justice that was meant for the ultimate sin was Priscilla's blue tears. This ring would be the perfect thing to place on a sinful person before dropping them into an ocean or a well, as it would cause that wicked undead to sink to the bottom with no ability to resurface. Here in the first hallway we ever saw in Lordran is the second last non-respawning Black Knight of the game. And like the others, it is here doing its duty. It is directly in front of an important artifact that protects the legacy of their master Gwyn, his wife and queen Priscilla. There are 3 sword-wielding Black Knights in the game, 2 here and 1 protecting the blue ring in the Undead Burg, another symbol of Priscilla. The final knight is in the catacombs and wields another Black Knight halberd. The light-devouring realm of Nito contains another Black Knight halberd. It can be traversed using a light spell or waiting till you find an artifact from Lost Isleth, but the skull lantern of the necromancers can work just as well. It's a bit cumbersome, but possible. And Rhea of Thoroland is trapped down there. We should probably rescue her as soon as possible. It would be terrible to leave her alone in that darkness. It also means we can do the pendant early. Everyone wants to know the secrets of the pendant, so if we rescue Rhea of Thoroland early, we could get to that part of the lore quicker. It'll just involve bumping Sen's Fortress for another episode, but that's no real big deal. So in the next episode, we will be heading down into the catacombs where we will be rescuing Rhea of Thoroland. That drop reminded me, we haven't talked about the Elder Futhark runes in a while. The reason I like to bring these up from time to time is the runes form a basis for some of the symbolic language in Dark Souls. This is a design technique that is used frequently in game design. The Major Arcana of the Tarot is one that I see a lot. We've already seen the differences of Thorazaz and Algiers play their role. Now let's talk about these 4 quickly. For magic we have Perth. It can be used to mark hunting grounds on a map and means game, like pheasants or boars. It also means small and hidden, like a rat. These are nods towards Priscilla, a hunted trophy, and Velka, a hidden rat. For fire we have Kenaz, which means fire or torch, though can also mean ulcer, a nagging pain that won't go away. And something I like about the mystical meaning of this rune is when it is inverted, it means false hope. The Divine Titanite at the bottom is Langoose, which means lake or water. Divine justice that can right wrongs. And the divine power is best used against the blasphemous skeletons that do not obey the rules of the First Flame. And finally, another cool and important one, the Green Titanite at the top. It has been broken, but the remains of the rune Urzu can be seen. As we discussed in the graveyard, Urzu means the auroch or the bull. But it also has another meaning, slag, the substance that remains after ore is refined into pure metal. And while we are here, let's also look at the dragon scale that we picked up. Peeled from an ancient dragon, a dragon is inseparable from its scales, and the transcendent apostles who seek the perpetuity of the ancient dragons have crossed the very end of the earth to seek this invaluable treasure. And now to return to the coded hallway that we saw at the beginning of the game. And for this section, remember how terrible Blighttown was. It was a rather gross episode, but Blighttown is a good reminder that the things that are happening to these characters can be quite harrowing. Blighttown is a raw reminder of that pain. And here we have a skewered person with a sack on their head, like we saw in the depths with the butchers. We have another Astora reference. Over here a demon, which we will return to later, but for now note the green and gold lights that bathe this room. This connects this demon to the last of Havel's men in the watchtower. Notice that the demon walks on the corpses of the many fallen undead. And to quote the lore expert Johann Burgermeister, a thing to note with the stray demon pacing around there is that there is no entrance or exits for it. The asylum was built around the demon. And over here we have a reminder of the text that we saw in the asylum keys. This is a place of iron bars. This asylum was built in the age of New Londo by someone who liked to work with that metal. And now the cell. Firstly, we have these chains in the corner, just like we saw on Lloyd's talisman. Have the rock binding the prisoner in this room. Also notice behind the chains are the insects we saw in the catacombs, connecting the prisoner of this cell to the harvesting of humanity in that place. And above the prisoner we see the silver shackles, the silver of the moon. I believe this is a symbol of Priscilla and her divine justice. Here in the corner we see a sack that marks a creature with no home. In the Undead Burg, when these sacks are hit, they explode, revealing pots and pans inside. And finally, the desiccated black rat, its mouth agape like the poisonous undead dragon we fought in the Valley of the Drakes, gnawed away at by the insects that bite and nibble. And putting this all together, we see this is Velka's cell, a place for a crazed witch. After her revenge on Gwyn, she realized the emptiness of that victory. Without Menace to love or Gwyn to hate, the world became meaningless, and in that void Velka went mad, clinging to a doll that represented the only safe home that she ever knew, the painted world of Ariamis. Peculiar doll, a strange doll with a strange dress, the key that opens the way to the painted world of Ariamis. There was once an abomination who had no place in this world. She clutched this doll tightly, and eventually was drawn into a cold, lonely, painted world. And this is an amazingly poetic and beautiful description, I think, as it reads like it belongs to Priscilla, who is right now trapped in the painted world of Ariamis. But here in this cell in the Age of Iron, Velka went into herself. She slumbered and dreamt. At the end of her arduous journey, all she had were the precious memories of her father and mother in the painted world. And for Velka and Priscilla, these memories are somewhat cold and lonely. And this peculiar doll is not with Velka now, because it was dropped when someone decided to wake the slumbering dragon and convince her to return to Lordran. And further on from that, the doll is a symbol of the painted world of Ariamis. It is another world within Lordran, a magical place that was constructed, the coming together of magic and engineering. The world is a symbol of Velka and Menace's friendship, a time when the two of them worked together, using their overwhelming intellect to build an entirely new world. Now let's go back and quickly sketch out what has happened here from Priscilla's point of view as the Dark Moon Goddess and Queen of Lordran. Her daughter has gone wild in the old city of Astora. A caduceus, a primordial serpent, has burst from her back. It is Priscilla's duty to cleanse the world, to keep it in balance using her divine justice. She does not act when Velka creates an undead legion. She does not act when Velka's city becomes a cult. She does not act when Velka starts devouring the remaining citizens of Astora. But when the caduceus is born, others demand her action. And what does she do? She sends Sir Artorias to slay the beast and rescue her daughter. Once her daughter is safe, she floods the city. Duty is difficult. Just ask the Daughters of Chaos. And when Priscilla should have acted, she refused. Her love for her child came first. Velka was safe, but the inhabitants of Blighttown had to live with her legacy. Why is Velka the goddess of sin, the one who defines sins and metes out the punishment? Because as a goddess of sin, she had a place in this world, and that was something her mother demanded. And now to finish up this section, by going back to the Watchtower key and the divine blacksmith that locked away a dear friend. This was what we saw with Sigmire many episodes ago, locked out of Enolondo. Menace used Velka's madness, something he was partly responsible for, to gain control of Lordran. Havel the Rock was meant to keep everyone to the way of white, a constancy that frustrated Menace. Yet the fall of Astora was the perfect excuse to send Havel away to his northern realm, to look after his poor sick daughter. Menace, being an earnest and good friend, wanted only the best for his ex-wife and old battle compatriot. And so he built them this asylum. And when he built it around them, sealing them away. The firstborn of Gwyn was only concerned with war. The dark son Gwyndolin was weak and ineffectual. And so, with the self-exile of Havel the Rock, the bull inherited the lands of Lordran and the legacy of Gwyn. Apologies for that, I just got interrupted. And now we're going to meet Snuggly the Crow, who will take warm and soft items from us and return hard and cold items, as it gathers things to feather its nest for its children. I've learned from the wikis that the name Snuggly comes from the crow in Demon's Souls that performs a similar task in that game. The crows in Dark Souls, though, are never actually named, just like the Witch of Izalith. And what we are going to drop here is the sack, the item we acquired by slaying the butchers of the depths, the royalty of Astora. And in case you were wondering, we will be going through each of the Snuggly item exchanges in future episodes, but right now let's just focus on the sack. Notice the icon of a dropped item. It is a Noble Knight of Astora. This is a nod towards a multiplayer focused mechanic called drift items. When certain items are dropped, they will move to another world where they will gain more power. Once an item has drifted through enough worlds, it will ascend and change into a rare item like a divine blessing. This is a noble act of giving and a part of jolly cooperation. And to have this exchange happen, we have to reload the game. So I'll just do that and I'll be right back.
You, give me warm, give me soft.
And now the icon has changed from the Knight of Astora to the Tower Shield and Sword, another sign of my class, the Knight, and also a symbol of a mother who loves her children, Priscilla. The sack we found in Astora has been replaced by something cold and hard, the Demon's Great Hammer. This was the weapon that was wielded by the Asylum Demon when we first escaped this prison. The last of Havel's men also wielded a great hammer, a weapon called the Dragon Tooth, a legendary hammer of Havel the Rock. The Great Hammer is the chosen weapon of Havel the Rock. The demon we fought in this room was another symbol of Havel's presence in the asylum. The demon's hammer came from the sack of Astora, because the events of Astora is what led to Havel the Rock being stuck here in the northern Undead Asylum. Now we are too weak to fight the stray demon at the moment, so I'm going to fall down into the pit and try to make a quick getaway. A couple of quick things to note while I flee in terror. The falling of the rocks, the crown atop the demon's head, and the wand that demon wields. And there we have it, the return to the Undead Asylum. We will be back in future episodes to uncover a couple of more mysteries that are still within these walls. But this is all the maddening existentialism I can take for now. So, next week, we will be doing our righteous and honourable duty and rescuing Rhea of Thurlen from the catacombs. Hope to see you all then. Bye.